Today we're going to take a closer look at the disaster in Indonesia and at how or why the alarm systems that were supposed to be in place failed. Our international affairs commentator Douglas Herbert joins us on set for that. Douglas, first of all, tell us, what were the security systems that were supposed to be in place?
Yeah, there's a whole network of security systems. It was not for lack of an early warning system that this disaster happened. To sort of enumerate them, the first line of defense really are these buoys. There are 22 of them. They were set up, basically, they are tsunami detectors, essentially. And a lot of them were meant to replace an earlier system of deep-sea buoys that were set up after the disastrous 2004 tsunami, which struck 14 nations, as you remember, including the Aceh province of Indonesia, with claiming about 230,000 lives. After that, they said, absolutely never again. We need to have a system. Those buoys were ineffective, and they're supposed to actually detect the tidal waves far out at sea. But there were also about 134 what we call tidal gauge stations, which are exactly what they sound like. They are closer to shore, and they are literally sensors that are meant to detect incoming tidal waves. You had land-based seismographs, once again, seismographs, earthquake detectors, both the location of an earthquake and their strength, and then meant to send a signal to alert the population, as well as a whole system of SMSs. That is, text message systems, sirens along the beaches, about 55 sirens that were supposed to go off and alert the population. So it's not for a lack of a system in place. It was very expensive. They were trying to set it up. A lot more technology involved in these systems. And I will note that, in fact, the Indonesian Meteorological Geologic Agency, actually did send out a warning initially and then retracted it 34 minutes later. One of the reasons they didn't have the pertinent information closer to the worst-stricken area, the worst-struck area, which was along Palu.
So one wonders then, with all those systems in places, why didn't they have the pertinent information? What went wrong? Yeah,
well, let's start with what I call that first line of defense, the buoys out at sea, the 22 of them. Some of them, about half of them perhaps, supplied high-tech, supplied by the U.S. and Germany. And their deep-sea sensors, literally, they were not functioning. And why were they not, or at least not adequately functioning, according to the Indonesian officials? A mixture of vandalism, theft, lack of maintenance, i.e. lack of funding. These are very expensive, high-tech sensors. They need money in order to maintain them in operating condition. So they weren't working, but also the tidal gauges themselves. They were often too far offshore. One was about 125 miles off Palu, once again, Palu being that area the worst stricken, right near the epicenter. So they really didn't have the pertinent information in time, and the information that they did have indicated waves of a much lesser magnitude. We said the waves reached almost 6 meters, 20 feet or so. Nothing of that magnitude had been predicted, far less. I'll also say that one of the problems is it's not just a matter of the weakness of the early detection systems, their inadequacy, their improper functioning. Also vital, an extremely vital component, perhaps just as important, was the lack of public awareness as to how to really respond, Eve, to these early warnings. Okay, so you get a warning. What do you do then? You need education. You need a trust in public officials and the information they give. You need the population to know what to do with that information. And there's no real indication that a lot of people did know. So even if they had received the information, would they necessarily know to move to higher ground? There's a lot of complacency. A lot of people, surprisingly, were right near the shore, even as they were watching tsunamis coming in. And we hear stories like this time and time again. So there's a component here of technology, improper functioning of the actual detection network, but also a lack of public awareness. And I'll just mention that a lot of the signals depend on SMSs, and if cell phone towers are knocked out, which are to receive those signals, and that was the case, you don't have the ability to send text messages on your cell phone.
Indeed. OK, well, Douglas Herbert, thanks a lot for giving us that side of the story there on that disaster in Indonesia.